Well, my friends from Hillsdale College of San Mateo and CSU Hayward. Many of you were we were fellow students. Some of you were my student athletes, and some later on we coached together. Well, about 2 years ago, I rekindled a friendship with Dr. Leah Johnson. Leah was a great student at the University of Phoenix, working on her bachelor's degree, and eventually earned her doctorate degree. And so 2 years ago, I had a chance to meet her in Sacramento, and it's been 25 years. So we started talking, and I was telling her that one of my concerns was that, I'm ready to retire, even though, I still substitute teach. I was ready to retire, and I didn't feel I had a good retirement plan, and especially in the area of the long term care. So she said, Marcel, that's exactly what I do. And I've been doing it for quite some time, over 15 years. So then she explained to me some of the things she did. And the most important thing she did was she gave me a peace of mind. Because after we worked out a product that was, for me, I felt great because now when my time comes and I go up to heaven with God, guess what? I feel very good about what I've left my daughter, my grandson, and my estate. So I asked her if she would be willing to speak to me today so that we could hear her say how she can help all of you. And that's my goal, is to make sure that you understand that Dr. Johnson helping me, she can do it for you too and for your family members. So Dr. Johnson, I have just introduced you to my fellow colleagues, in some cases, friends, and I'm really excited about what you'll be able to talk to them about. So why don't you go ahead and tell them a little bit more about yourself and explain what you can do for them.
Thank you, Marcel, so much for your time. And I'm so really honored that you would have me to meet your colleagues and the former athletes. I know you were an Olympian coach, and wow, that's incredible. And to still see your energy and thriving. And when we met back up a couple of years ago and we did have that conversation, I was very grateful that you even wanted to delve into that particular subject area because there's so many people whom I meet, they believe they have everything all together. And I'm finding that that's not the case. So, what it is that I do, I really help people to enhance their financial portfolio, their retirement portfolio, so that they can live life in a peaceful way. So, I appreciate the time today.
Well, good. As I talked with you about, you gave me a peace of mind. And that was a couple years ago, and I'm in my 70s. Some of the people that you're going to be talking with and they'll be consulting with you are in their 50s and 60s and 70s and may think it's too late or it's impossible. So I have some questions that they would probably ask you also. So,
Sure.
what's the most common mistake that people, when they're planning for retirement, make and they're in their 50s? What's usually the most common mistake they might make?
Right. Thank you for that question. What I'm finding is that some people think that it's too early. They think that they'll have time to plan. In actuality, when you first begin working in your early 20s, that's when you need to start preparing. But it's not too late when people are in their 50s, especially they still have a good portion of their health. It's important to realize, hey, maybe I've not prepared all the way, but the mistake is thinking that they have it all together already and they don't need to do anything else. They're thinking that somebody is going to take care of me when I need it. And that's a huge mistake.
Yes. One of the other questions I have is sometimes we think maybe one product, like life insurance, will take care of us. But I found out talking with you, no, there's a lot of different financial products and strategies that
Mhm.
a person in their 50s and 60s should do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, thanks. I look at four different types of policies, and I'll just take briefly a brief short amount to explain. The first one is a term life insurance policy, and that particular policy will last you for a term 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And after that term is over, so is your policy. And thankfully, if you haven't passed on and you're still alive, that's a great thing, right? But if something does happen before the term is up, then your family will be able to take care of your final expenses and anything else that you have. Also, along with that term policy, there's what's called living benefits. That is very critical, especially for people who are still working. Because if something happens, you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, God forbid, anything like that happens to you, critical illness or chronic illnesses, and you can no longer work, how are you going to be able to take care of your financial obligations? Well, the living benefits portion of that policy will then provide you either a lump sum of money of your death benefit. So policies are not for when you die, they're for while you're still living. Then we have whole life policy. Whole life policy is great, and it's in place for you to either take a loan from it. And when I say loan, that means you have to pay it back, and you're going to have to pay interest with what you've taken out. And if you've not paid the loan back fully upon your passing, then that amount will be deducted from your death benefit. The third type is universal life. Universal life will allow you to make the same premium payment, either monthly or annually, for the rest of your life. And you can have a long-term care benefit rider attached to that universal life policy. And then you have an index universal life. I call that is the granddaddy of them all because it gives you so many benefits. For instance, you'll be able to contribute to that policy, and it really becomes your own bank because you'll be earning compounding interest and you do not lose any money in that policy as it is growing. This is what the wealthy have used for over a century and how they've been able to accumulate wealth. And with that particular policy, it does have a death benefit. You can get long-term care riders with that particular benefit. So it just depends, Marcel, on what your need is.
Have been a teacher almost all my life.
Mhm,
I remember having a 401k plan.
mhm.
And then somewhere I heard about a 403. Can you tell us the difference between a 401k and a 403b? And which option would probably be best for people that are over 50?
Sure, absolutely. Many companies allow their employees to have retirement plans, and it depends on the industry that you're working in that will denote if you have a 401k or a 403b. And I just want to add to there is a 457 in there as well, but when you brought up the 401k and the 403b, they're really merely the same. It's just a different code of the Internal Revenue Code because you may be a teacher or a nurse, you'll have a 403b. You may be a city employee, state, that's a 401k. So it just depends the category of industry that you're in. And they operate on the same way. And 401ks have been great for some people. And now, when people have 401ks, there's really a lot of people who are not experiencing a great retirement because they do not have enough in their 401k. And so I'm looking at the average 401k now. People who are age 50 to 52, they have about $80,000. Well, $80,000 it on paper looks great, but when you take into consideration if you're making 100 grand a year, how long is that 80,000 going to last you post retirement? And you've not paid taxes on that. So you can take at least, depending upon the tax bracket that you're in, and if you have had any loans taken out on your 401k. So it's going to really be beneficial to have that conversation about your retirement and do you have in place what you need so that you don't have to go back to work. And I know many people, Marcel, know a lot of people who have had to go back to work. And just really quickly, my husband and I, we went to a restaurant and it was later in the evening, and our waitress, she was about 85 or so, and Marcel, she was, shuffling her feet, and I said to her, I said, how long have you been working here? And she said, she just got this job about 3 years ago. I said, she said, because she didn't have any money. And I said, wow. And she had worked a full-time job, but it wasn't enough because
Yes,
medical bills were piling up. And she had to have some source of income to meet her financial obligations.
right.
Mhm.
You've hit on a good point because I was in the hospital for 4 days about 3 years ago, and I'm diabetic, so I had to go in there and get different medical tests and so and so. When I got the bill, which my insurance company paid for some of it, but I was floored. That was 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Today, I can't even begin to think how much it would be. So that's why I came to you 2 years ago about long-term care, because at least with long-term care, it's not going to drain your entire retirement savings.
Right.
So, what are some financial strategies to ensure that we, listening to you, are, will be covered without draining our savings?
Mhm. That is an excellent question. Like I said, there's no better time to prepare than right now. People are the healthiest they're going to be right now, today. And so the time is now to prepare. So there are different vehicles you can use to protect your financial nest egg. One is that if you've purchased real estate, like an additional home, well, you have that in place in case you need to cover any medical bills or nursing home costs, which is like through the roof right now. But then you sell your home and you have that money, that's great. But there are not a lot of people who have that luxury of having a second home. But then you do have an opportunity to get a policy that will allow you to receive 2 to 4% of the, I'll call it, it's a death benefit, but I'll call it a disability benefit. That money that you will receive tax-free every month. So the opportunity to protect your savings, what you have now, and let me just digress right here, Marcel. We know that the stock market is unpredictable. We know that what goes up must come down. We know we do not want to experience another 2008, 2015, 2020, but everything that goes up must come down. And where are we when it begins to decline? Do you have enough time in your retirement to replace what you've lost? Because if you lose, if you say if you have $1,000, you lose 50%, that's $500 you have left. And if you gain 50%, you say, okay, great, I'm back to where I started. No, not true. You only gain 50% of what you have. That's $250. That's $750. So the question is, do you have enough time to continue to work to regain what you lost? So in order to protect what you have, I definitely recommend, and if you can qualify, it's not for everyone, but one of the fastest ways in order to get that peace of mind, protecting your money, is to get what's called an indexed universal life policy. And Marcel, babies can actually get one of these when they're 15 days old. And again, this is how families have been able to unmask their wealth because it's compounding interest that's growing. Question: if you know the bank is covered by the FDIC, that's insurance. The I in there stands for insurance corporation. And if you're putting your money in the bank and say you put 500,000 in an account, you're insured for how much? Up to 250,000. What happens to the other 250,000? You don't get it. Where do you think the money comes from to give you back your money? It's from insurance. My question is, would you rather put your money in the bank or put your money where the banks put their money? It's actually your money. It would make sense to put your money where the banks put your money because now you're earning the compounding interest and you're cutting out the middleman. So protecting your money, there are different ways to do that, and I will give you, offer an opportunity for you to have that conversation a little later.
Well, that's a great point because It's like you go buy a car and they tell you when especially if it's a Cadillac or something very expensive, oh, when it leaves the lot, you're going to almost get all your money back. I've owned a Mercedes, fortunately, and the moment I get out there, about 50% of the value is gone. And
Absolutely.
and you just explained that's what happens also if you don't do it correctly.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this question, and it has to do with children. Many of
Hmm.
us have grandchildren or children and grandchildren. How can I, working with you, make sure they even have an opportunity to get the same products and strategies? How do you work with them?
Absolutely. Right. As you know, I have 8 children. My husband and I, we have 8 children biologically, and we have 19 grandchildren. And so we've set them up so that they'll be able to go to college, won't have to get a student loan and purchase homes. So the way in which that happens is the parent or the grandparent can set up a policy for the child, and the parent or the grandmother or grandfather can be the owner of the policy. And then when the child gets 18, then either you can still be the owner, but you will have access even before the child turns 18 to the cash. But if it's for the child, you want to, save it for the child. But you have access as the owner. So that's a great way to begin savings. And I know a lot of people use the 529B, but there are some definite restrictions to the 529B. We don't have time to go into all of that, but we can, revisit that and we'll do a side-by-side comparison.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned to me was when my grandson graduates from high school in a couple of years, because of the products that I worked with you to get,
Mhm.
I don't, if he doesn't get a scholarship, guess what? I still have money that I can help him pay for his education. And is that one of your goals too, to help people with their children or grandchildren to have money they can get quickly?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Marcel. And the great thing about it is that even if the child does not go to college, that money is still available tax-free. It would have grown as with compounding interest. I want to say time, though, is going to be your best friend. So it's not something that you would start and then in 6, 7, 8 months to say, okay, I want all of my money. It doesn't work that way. Time is your best friend. I said that again, because when we allow the money to compound and compound, because there are rules to everything. And so I don't want people to think that this sounds too good to be true. It sounds too good not to be true. I have several books, and one is called Money, Wealth, Life Insurance. Another one is called Tax-Free Retirement. Another one is called The Retirement Miracle. I do suggest people get the Retirement Miracle. And I'm reading another one called the 770 Plan. And that one, even for physicians, one is called The Wealthy Physician. I can go on and on and on about different sources for people to read. So it's like I said, it's been around, Marcel, since 1913. And every 100 years, Congress has to vote on this law. And in 2012, Congress voted on it. Marcel, did you get a memo that they were voting?
No, of course not.
I I didn't. I didn't. That's probably the only thing, the Congress agreed upon really quickly, because if everyone in this country, by way, we have foreign national programs as well. We're in Canada and Puerto Rico as well. But if everyone knew about this, even if you knew about it 20 years ago, your life would really be different. And that's the education. That is why I get so passionate about teaching financial literacy, not just because of the money, but it is how can we become more educated about our own money. We shouldn't rely upon another source or someone else just to feed us what they want us to know.
Yes.
That's why I'm giving you the resources. Read it for yourself. Tons of information about that. And I can't speak enough on what's been available and how people's lives can change. So it's not too late. Even the policy that you're speaking about, Marcel, people can get them up to like they're 85 years old.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So, but the younger you are, the better it is. And again, I want everyone to know that you do have to qualify. Most of them do have a medical. And so if you have a current critical illness or something like that, then there's not much we can do at that point. But I've had a couple of clients who have suffered cancer and their cancer is in remission. One is 5 years, was able to get approved. So it's worth having the conversation to see what it is because everyone's plan is totally customizable for that individual.
Well, great. Now, one of the things I want to tell all of my former Hillsdale CSM and CSU Hayward or anybody else that's going to be listening is that our financial future is really in our hands. And you've been mentioning that. And it's never too late to take control of that. And so, for those of us, whether we're starting to plan for retirement or fine tuning, the time is really, as you mentioned, now. And Dr. Johnson has the expertise and solutions to guide every one of our steps along the way. And we are each different in our own way. So I really advise you not to wait until it's too late. You can schedule a personal consultation with Dr. Johnson today and ensure that your future is much more secure. And here's the big one, stress-free. So there's a link below, book your free consultation and starting your peace of mind. Dr. Johnson, thanks so much for what you've done for me and my family. And I want to thank you for spending time with me today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.